Our interviews with Water Patrol have generated hundreds of comments and questions, and there were still quite a few we didn't get to. So today, Trooper Dylan Green is back to tackle some of the biggest remaining debates, from big boats and PWC rules to night boating, swimming around anchored boats, and even responding to some of your most entertaining comments. So let's get into it. What is your opinion about all of the big boat controversy, we'll call it?
I think you have to weigh the purpose of it. My opinion is these big cruisers, the idea of them is, ocean going boats. Do I have a problem with them out here at the lake? No, I don't, as long as they know how to drive them.
Yeah.
And it's being aware of your wake, being aware of your surroundings. If you're coming up, and I think it's very important for me to say this, if you see me running lights and sirens, the best thing I've seen these operators do is slow down for me. That prevents me from having to hit your wake at 60 miles an hour trying to get to an emergency, and me waking up the next morning realizing I probably need to go to the chiropractor. So I think it is imperative, depending on how they're being driven, just like a jet ski though. How are you controlling that vessel? How are you protecting everything around you?
Mm-hmm. I talked about this in another episode recently too, though, because some people will ask, when does it ever stop? And the truth is, it pretty much has. Because of the dock size restrictions that Ameren has put into effect, you really can't have a boat bigger than 60 foot because it will hang too far out of the dock that you're allowed to have, therefore you can't have it. So really, you probably will never get bigger than 60 foot here on the lake.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty safe to say. Once again, that's one of those things that we get asked all the time. Why didn't we, as an agency, put a restriction on the lake? We don't own the lake.
Yeah, you don't get to put the restriction.
That's not our job.
Yep. Awesome. Now let's jump back over to some PWC questions. I know we touched on it a little bit. One comment here, there's actually a couple comments. One of them was, please do one, she's talking about a video, on how many people can be on a PWC and tube. I see 5 to 6 all the time. Another comment was talking about tubing, so this isn't necessarily PWC, but tubing near docks, which my response to that person was, like, you can't fix stupid. Because that should be basic knowledge, right?
Yep.
Because as anybody who tubes, if you take a turn too hard, a kid goes flying off, you catch a wake, guess what's going to happen? They're going to go flying into the dock and bad things are going to happen.
Correct.
Start with that first one. I see 5 to 6 on PWCs and tubes all the time.
So where we are covered on it, so every vessel has what's called a capacity plate. Whether it's weight or how many people can be on board of a vessel. That is not something us as troopers can enforce directly. I can't enforce that violation of that capacity plate. What I can enforce is an overload of a vessel. If there's so many people on a boat that it is presently presenting a danger to the public or to the subjects aboard that vessel, we could do what's called a termination of voyage. So, which is 306.100, it's covered, I think it's section 4, that allows us to say, hey, we got to stop. You guys need to go back to dock. We need to review what's appropriate, how many people should be on this boat.
And specifically PWC.
There's 1-seaters, 2-seaters, 3-seaters, 4. I can't enforce what the manufacturer says is appropriate. What I can enforce is it safe? So if there are 5 or 6 people on a jet ski, I think we can all agree that that's a little too much. And that jet ski is probably more underwater than it is above water.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe in what they were referring to as well is maybe it's 2 or 3 on the PWC and then another 3 on the tube, which means how'd you get there? I guess they had to pull them right out of the docks on the tube because, again, you put 5 or 6 on a PWC, that's just kind of asinine.
Yeah, it's a little excessive in my opinion.
Okay, moving on. Swimming around anchored boats. Very practical, right? One of the comments that I will share here on this one is if you're coving out, people are swimming around the boat, we put our flag up even though we're anchored. Is that required?
It is not. If you have an anchor in the water, you are not required to have the orange flag. Now, to that person that put that comment, kudos. I think that just gives one more identifier to people approaching to be more aware of what's going on around you. Is it required? No. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. Anything to keep everybody else safe around you, I'm all for it.
As a boater going by, and again, I feel kind of silly having to even say this, but I think we should. You're obviously shouldn't, I shouldn't say nobody does, but cove, drop anchor out in a channel. You're asking for problems there, right? And I don't know that I've ever actually seen that.
I don't think.
You do see people that are just sitting idle in the middle of the channel. It makes me wonder what the hell are you doing? I hope there's something wrong with your boat, because why else are you just sitting in the middle of the channel? But what's your comment? What are the rules, the laws as it pertains to that?
There is nothing that says where you have to anchor at. There is no law that states that you can anchor here, but you can't anchor there. The only thing that we stress with people is you got to think about the tension on the line of the anchor. And if you're going to have people in the water, you're putting them at risk if you're in a very, very rough condition, high winds or something, of that anchor line snapping. And we've seen it happen. That is nothing new to us. Every year, we usually come across one that the anchor line snaps or it comes unlodged, and there was so much force or tension against the boat that the anchor ends up back in the boat, either A, damaging the boat or seriously injuring somebody aboard that boat.
So we're back here in the state park on the Glaze Arm, right? You might give you the perception that it's safer back here because there's no houses. There's no houses, there's no docks, so it's just all one big cove. That's obviously not the case. And if you're going to cove out, if you're going to anchor, your advice is probably get as deep into a cove as possible.
Absolutely. Get away from the main traffic. Get away from the people that are out running the channels.
Now, I will bring up also, we are directly across from a very popular cliff jumping spot here on the Glaze Arm. I actually posted my stepson and his friends doing that on the Nangle Arm recently, and that one actually got a lot of comments. Well, what's your take on that? It's not illegal. You're not doing anything wrong, but what would you recommend? I had somebody comment and say you actually shouldn't wear a life jacket when you're cliff jumping.
I've heard that comment quite often. I'm going to tell you always wear a life jacket. That's my rule of thumb. Do I know the scientific aspect behind why you shouldn't at certain feet? No, I don't. What I would say, at least have one next to you.
Yeah.
And then know what's underneath the water line. So I know for a fact, because every year I like to check it, underneath that cliff right there is 50 feet. So you have 50 feet to fall before you would actually impact something. And what we see a lot of is somebody will find some random cliff that they want to jump off of, and they're not running a depth finder, they're not running sonar to actually know that, hey, there's another shelf 5 feet below the water line.
I mean, again, that should go without saying, but gosh. And, typically the rule of thumb is if you see a cliff line, that typically does mean deep water, but not always. And so the first thing we do before we cliff jump, which we do at a couple places on the Angla, is I go right over there as close as I can to the shore, and I'm just running my depth finder.
Yep.
Just to see how deep it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, again, it should go without saying, but if you're a new boater, if you're a rental boat, make sure you run your depth finder before you go jumping off cliffs.
Absolutely.
And, again, I don't know if it's opinion or law. I guess it's not law because if you asked, but my opinion is if they hit the water and it knocks them out, I at least want to know that they have the life jacket on. That's possible. It's kind of a scary thought. It makes you question why you're even doing it in the first place, but YOLO.
Well, and it depends on the height. I mean,
Sure.
You think about it, 50 feet jumping from a 50-foot cliff,
That's
you're
high.
Basically jumping into concrete.
That's high. 50 feet may not seem like a lot, but when you're standing up there and then when you hit the water, and typically I tell my kids, I'm like, make sure your feet hit the water first. It hurts the bottom of your feet when you hit the water.
But it's better than your tailbone.
Correct. Or any other part of the body for that matter. Okay, good stuff. All right, night boating, which we really didn't discuss in the first episode, and I legitimately had this question. I hope it's a joke, but I'm going to say it. Can I use a flashlight if I can't see where I'm going?
So
Hold on. One more. This is actually a legitimate question. Would have liked to hear about driving at night. Thank you for making that comment. But let's start with the flashlight one.
if you need to use it to see, yes.
Kind of like dock lights, right?
Exactly. You can use your docking lights while on the main channel as long as they're not running in a consistent manner. So if you're running down the channel with your docking lights on, that is illegal. If you are using it intermittent, just like a spotlight, to look for hazards, to keep a proper lookout, you're never going to be bugged about it.
That brings up another good question, which is, what is the proper speed? What is the speed limit at night?
30 miles per hour.
That is-
Not 35,
Oh, sorry.
it's 30.
30's too much, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, as somebody who's boated at night, and call me a weenie if you will, and I'm sure somebody will, I think 10 miles an hour is plenty adequate because you literally cannot see the shoreline in many cases to know where you're going. And I mean, honestly, in today's day and age, you can follow, maps and whatnot, which everybody should and they do, but gosh, 30 miles an hour is nuts.
Well, and it's weird to think about. So majority of my shifts are night shifts. I enjoy the nights. You get a little bit of the action, the dinner rush, and then you get into night shift where you have more of the calm atmosphere. What I would tell people is when I have to run lights and sirens to a call, 60 miles an hour, my face is glued to that front windshield because I'm just constantly scanning. So when we talk about 30 miles an hour at night, that's moving.
It really is, actually, because, I mean, for me on my tri-tune, and I think a lot of people can attest to this, a comfortable speed is 20, 25 miles an hour.
I would agree.
And that handles the wake the best, it's usually the best fuel efficiency, et cetera, unless you're, of course, in a speedboat. And
Yeah.
different story. But okay, so 30 miles an hour, my opinion is that's crazy. My rule is 10 miles an hour, but you do you. Is there any biggest mistakes that you see boaters at night besides going too fast?
Well, I would say not
Besides
know.
lights.
Besides the lights, I mean that's a given there. but not knowing where you're at, not knowing your terrain. Every year we get that phone call, hey, I have no idea where I'm at. And it's like, okay, well, what do you see around you? A tree and a dock. It's like, okay, we've kind of figured it out that you're probably not in the glaze because there's not too many docks.
Yep.
But know your terrain, know the points, know your low water, your shallow areas. Try to stay away from the shoreline so much so you prevent that collision, that unnecessary collision.
And if there's not a lot of moonlight out and you've never boated at night, like on the Glaze Arm, it can be pitch
It's
black.
scary.
Very,
It is scary.
Very scary. And truthfully, even here at the Lake of the Ozarks, you could get lost in broad daylight.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I've heard of people going into coves thinking they're on the channel. They're like, oh crap, where am I? And you get completely turned around.
Yeah.
What is your advice on that? Like, I think in today's day and age, why don't you have a map pulled up? And a lot of the boats have them built in, like yours does, but mine doesn't. And I just have my cell phone sitting there, and I just put the map. I just turn the map on, and I know exactly where I'm at.
It starts with your pre-driving. Have a plan. When you're going out, have a plan. Where are we going? Are we going from the 8 to the 20? Okay, well, we know at the 20 is the glaze no wake area. If I go past that, I know I'm too full.
You know, that's a good, you bring up one more good point that I want to touch on as it relates not necessarily to night boating, but boating in general. So we do the social media for the Lake Ozark Marine Dealers Association. So we put out a lot of content about preparedness, right? I see these posts sometimes from my team and I'm just like, gosh, this is such basic knowledge. But then on the other side of the coin, I'm looking at it like, I've actually never, and I've been boating for many years, I've never really stopped and thought to myself, okay, life jacket count, do I have a whistle? Are my fire extinguishers not, outdated? Like all these things, we're so excited to get on the boat, get the first beer in our hand. What would you say are some of the very basic things that you should pretty much be checking fairly regularly before you go out on a boat?
So when it comes to the life jackets, make sure that they haven't been beaten on. A lot of people use the life jackets when they're coving out to sit on, use as cushions. Are the straps torn? Are they no longer in a good standing condition? Because that does make it a violation. The Coast Guard label on the back means that every fastener works and it's supposed to be manufactured the way that it is. If you're not checking that stuff, technically, if I pull you over and you don't have the proper equipment, we can do a termination of the voyage and ask you to go back to your dock to get the proper equipment. So let's prevent that from happening and just do a quick check, quick screen, click of the horn, check the whistle, make sure the fire extinguisher is charged and pressurized and ready to go.
So let's wind this thing down with a couple of the most entertaining comments. I'm actually personally excited to hear what your responses are to these. First one, and this probably might win an award for the just silliest comment. I'll just call it that. I drink a 12-pack every day I'm out on my boat.
It's all fun and games until you get caught. And I don't even know how to answer that one realistically, because if you're doing that, you're thinking that it's only affecting you. But what I would stress to people on that one, or especially to that individual, is when it affects somebody else's family or affects somebody else's life, he's not the one that has to go make a notification to somebody saying, hey, somebody lost their life because of an impaired boater. And that's where I harp on as an individual is, just because I wear this uniform, I'm still human. And that stuff takes a toll on an individual, telling someone, hey, your loved one was killed in a boating accident. What was the factors behind it? Well, it was intoxication. That's not fair. It's not fair to anyone.
Yeah, so basically don't be stupid. And, and I know that somebody's going to comment and say, I could drink a 12-pack and I'm barely even buzzed. And that might be true, but you're probably over the legal limit.
Absolutely.
And that's the key. And I did comment to several people saying that because they're like, oh, where's this world coming to? They're telling us that we can or can't drink on our boats. No, nobody said that. In fact, what's different between the road and the boat and water is that you are allowed to have an open container while you're driving a boat. You're just not allowed to be over the legal limit. That's it.
Correct.
And I totally side with you on this because, listen, I'd like to go out. I'm here for one reason, fun. I love this lake. But I will tell you that there is nothing more scary. I lost a nephew to a drowning. It was on a river. It was different, but still, it had nothing to do with anybody doing anything bad. But water is one of the most dangerous places you can be.
Absolutely.
And in this lake, because we are a mud bottom, you cannot see a foot or two below the surface. And if you lose somebody below the surface, they're gone.
Correct. And that's where we go into the simple rule of thumb to fix that. Put a life jacket on.
Yeah, it's really simple. All right, we'll move off that one. I hope he sees this, and we'll see what his next comment is. The next one, this is good. The only way they're going to catch me is at the ramp. In other words, they're going to outrun you.
Yeah. So my favorite to say to that is actually last year I had one of those instances of they won't catch me, I'm at the boat ramp. Well, by the time I got to the boat ramp, he was now backing his truck into the water. So he didn't just get a BWI, he got a DWI to go on top of it. So you may think that, but there's enough of us out there that we're going to coordinate, hey, this guy's trying to get away from me. I have a helicopter that's less than 15 minutes away in Jeff City, that all I have to do is get on the radio and say, hey, can you come help me out a little bit? And they're going, absolutely. So if you run from us, at the end of the day, we're going to find out who you are. Boats can't just magically disappear. There's so many docks, and if you're going to an area, we're going to be able to locate that area.
Now, we also talked off camera last time, we never did post this one, about, you talk about road spikes. Road spikes, obviously, they put them down when there's a chase and it deflates the tires, right? You have water spikes, essentially. Explain that.
So, if you got a runaway vessel, so operator fell off the boat, boat's doing circles, we have the ability to drop in a large rope and tie it to the back of our boats, and we'll pull it behind us, and when that boat runs over that, it's so thick that it's going to get entangled in that prop, and it's going to disable that motor. So the same thing, if somebody's being so careless that they're running from us, creating a substantial risk or danger to other people, we're going to use what means necessary to protect the motoring public.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but if you run from any cop at any point in your life, you're not very bright. You're not thinking very clearly. That's just dumb. Okay, fair enough. Last one, the most infamous comment that has absolutely nothing to do with this conversation, but never fails on pretty much every post about the Lake of the Ozarks is, it's the Lake of E. coli. Now, I'm not going to ask you to comment on that. You're not a scientist, but I do want to ask you. That is obviously a very big misconception about this lake. What are some of the weirdest or biggest misconceptions that you feel like people have about this lake?
That this water's super dirty. And everybody's like, that water is disgusting. Well, here's the deal. There's a dam on one end and a dam on another end. And I promise you, Ameren's not turning off the dam and not going to produce power so they can see how dirty they can make the lake. It's constantly running, so you constantly do have a flow from one end to another. So the waters get replenished nonstop.
I think I read somewhere that it's every 2 to 3 months that it's actually brand new water.
I 100% believe that.
Yeah. That's part of the process. But the other one is just simply that there's a lot of, there's the lake of pee and poop. That's a common one. Obviously, there's a million boats, and so oil, gas. But the truth is, for anybody who doesn't know this, and I learned this myself when I moved here, was that the lake's base was fertile farmland.
Correct.
And we're a mud bottom lake where, again, they grew crops before the lake was here, versus a table rock, which is a beautiful lake, which is a clearer lake because it's a rock bottom.
Correct.
And that's what creates the clarity in the water. Not the amount of pee and poop, not the boats, none of that.
Yeah, and that's what people have the misconception of, is there's so much oil in this water, there's so much fuel in this water. Well, if that's the case, why do we have fish the size of humans?
Why is it one of the best fishing lakes?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good point. So as we wrap this thing up, and it doesn't matter how many times I correct that, there's always just going to be the absolute hater, the brain eating amoeba. I didn't even bring that one up. Somebody literally just commented in the last 2 days saying she's coming to the lake, but boy, she's not going to get in the water because she heard about somebody dying from a brain eating amoeba, which I responded to that one too. I'm happy to share the video with the data on that one. You know what my response to is, anybody that says that kind of stuff is, the data around dying in a car accident is so much greater than dying at the Lake of the Ozarks, but yet you don't think twice about getting in your vehicle every single day. Yet it's probably one of the most dangerous things you can do in your life.
Could not agree more.
Yeah, I don't even know what else to say. Maybe we just drop the mic at that point. Now, Dylan, I couldn't thank you enough for continuing to take us out doing this. I'd love to say that this is going to wrap this up, but I have a feeling it's not. I have a feeling we're going to keep doing this.
I'm ready for round 3.
This has been a lot of fun. So for those of you that have been watching, keep sharing your comments. All of them. The good, the bad, the ugly, the disagreements. We love it all. We're reading them all. He told you he's laying in bed at night and reading this. So
my feelings may get hurt every once in a while, but I'll be okay.
I have a feeling he's got thick skin. But keep them coming, keep engaging, and let us know, what did we not cover that you want to see us cover, because I'm going to come back out. We're going to continue to do this. I can't thank you enough again. I do believe, and we can probably tease, that we might have some episodes in the future that are actually kind of like days in the life, where we're going to go out with you and film your actual day. So you might be pulling somebody over. You're going to be on film.
Yeah. I'm all for it.
Oh, I'm going to get some hate for that one. Dylan, until next time, brother.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I
man.
appreciate it.